Every time that I've failed, every time that I've emptied myself, there was always someone to fill my cup. For those that I've done wrong, for those that I've known for oh so long, I'll always hold a place in my heart for you.
All right, so tell me a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, well, I am a trauma healing guide, and I support primarily women who come see me who want to heal their unresolved trauma and really free themselves from chronic stress and chronic health issues. But beyond that, I'm a mom of 4, and I live here in Colorado, and I enjoy being of service to those who really want to free themselves from trauma and all the things that come along with it so that they can live the life that they really dream about or would like to live. Right. So that's really where my passion lies.
Now, how did you get into it? You know, everybody has a story about how we do the work that we do, right? You know, there's a huge story behind Memories of Us and how I started the podcast, and I'll tell you a little bit about that as we go. So how did you get into it?
Yeah, well, it's been a journey, just like you mentioned. I actually was in corporate America for about 20 years. And I spent my time being kind of in the training organizations of different companies. But really, I got into this work because of my own trauma story and my own healing journey. And then it just became a real big passion of mine to really pay back and help others free themselves in that space. So I had a really traumatic childhood growing up. I suffered a lot of sexual abuse and a lot of neglect. And at the age of 14, my parents committed suicide. And so I went through a lot of grief and loss at a very young age. And it really, weighed on my soul and took a toll on me. About a year or so after all that happened, I myself tried to commit suicide and got the help I needed and was diagnosed with PTSD and did a lot of recovery from that. But it was a journey, right? So I was in my teenage years going through high school, trying to recover and just kind of be a normal person outside of all the craziness that happens in high school. Then I, in my 20s, kind of got married and had some kids. And then some more trauma started to surface, kind of flashbacks and another layer of healing that would occur at that point in my life. And then I grew a little bit more from that and gained a little bit more perspective and awareness of really what happened and what wasn't my fault, and that it, I didn't ask for it, I didn't deserve it. It really was seeing all that trauma through the lens of my adult eyes instead of experiencing it as a child. And in my late 30s, then another round of kind of stuff started coming up and surfacing. And so I always say I was born into trauma, but I've really spent my entire life learning different ways to really recover and heal and peel back those layers that, get put on us either from our families or from the experiences we have in life that really weren't mine. The trauma wasn't mine. The experiences weren't mine. The beliefs I grew up with of staying quiet and being small weren't mine. And so I've spent a lifetime really peeling those back and letting go of what wasn't and really stepping into kind of who I am. And through that journey, it was like such a transformation from where I started that I really felt empowered to help others kind of go through that journey and hold space for someone to do that, because it's not an easy process, and it's made a little bit easier when you have someone there in your corner that you can support you and hold space for whatever is coming up, whether it's anger or sadness or frustration or whatever it is. So that's really how I got into this position.
Now, are you willing to go into the stories behind and everything, because we're raw and uncut, so nothing's cut out.
Yes.
And this is your platform. I am just a visitor here with you. And a ride, and I'll ask questions because I have a very curious mind. So there's nothing.
Yeah.
And just a little bit behind my Memories of Us, the podcast. So Memories of Us, the podcast is based around my nonprofit. And I got into that work, just like you said. I love that you said it, that you had to go back and realize that all of these things, peel back the layers. And I'm a firm believer in that, dealing with my own trauma from the age of 6 all the way up until I was in my 40s. I always tell people I've been grieving for 41 years and never knew it as a man in society, right? And when you've gone through a fraction of the things I've gone through, most people don't survive. I mean, I've been through it. I was homeless for years and years and years, and never even knew what homeless was until I was older. I've spent most of my life moving in and out of motels. And, having to survive in some situations that most people would break. I've been betrayed by my friends. I've been set up to get murdered. Let's see, went to prison for 5 years for a crime I never committed. Got out of there.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The list goes on and on because I spent majority of my life as a gangbanger. And then when I got out of that lifestyle, I was homeless because when you're a gangbanger, you can't really stay in one space, right? My thought pattern was, if I stay here too long, someone's going to find me and they're going to kill me. So I constantly have to keep moving. You can't hit a moving target, and it makes it easier for me to keep track of you. So that was my mentality from the time I was 13 till 31. So that was my mentality, was survival. I have to survive, no matter what. So here I am, moved to Colorado at the age of 17, left home at the age of 15, went to DC. Good time of year. I love the 90s, the early 90s.
Yeah.
So many other things, lost all of my grandparents. I've lost both parents. So sorry to hear about your parents doing that. And if you want, I would love to talk about that as well.
Sure.
Lost my son 5 years ago.
Oh, my goodness.
Had my bout with depression, going through the grieving stage, not knowing, right?
Yeah.
And so there's a whole story behind all of that as well, with his mom, with my son's mom, and going through the system as a man and being treated like pure crap, And then when my son passed away, only to have his mom turn against me for no reason. So I was going, oh, okay. So then from there, lost everything again. Let's see. Lost everything, was homeless for a couple of years. So I was bouncing around. This is just about 3 years ago, three, maybe 4 years ago now. And almost committed suicide. And that's where my journey really started to make sense to me. Because after all of that, it was like something just woke up in me. And I went, you know what? I need to connect with more men out there like myself.
Yeah.
Or either try to get some help, right? And so I went to a lot of places, and lo and behold, nothing. A lot of it was for females or families, right? And men we don't talk like that. We don't talk around crowds. Or it was for kids and moms, and the men pushed it off to the wayside. So I went, you know what? As crazy as this sounds, I'm going to start a nonprofit. So I did. I had no idea what I was doing, right? I just knew I was going to do it. And I just knew that was what I was supposed to do.
That's incredible.
And there I went, okay, struggle. Then finally I went, you know what? There's another way to do this. I want to start this podcast, and I want to showcase stories of men that have gone through loss and grief to come on and tell their story. And because it's going to help someone else, right? Your story is someone else's survival guide. And so that's where it all started. And then my audience grew, and more women were coming to me and going, I never knew this. And I told my buddy, I said, you know what? We're on to something here. So this season 3, we've already dabbed into it a little bit in season 2, where we have women for National Women's History Month, right? We have a bunch of great women up there, everybody from Amanda Ferret to Lauren Patterson, all of these, it's just beautiful people, right? And so this year we was going, let's open up the door to everyone.
Okay.
Because let's showcase the deaf doulas, let's showcase the trauma workers, let's showcase these stories, because we are engaging with people that are going through trauma, right? Or going through experiencing no grief. We understand, as workers in this field, we understand that they're not in that moment. They may not be in that moment with you. Their mindset may be somewhere else from a childhood experience. Yeah. I say this from my own experience as well, because I have had that happen. I've had to go back and go, why am I this angry guy? Why am I so comfortable being alone? And it's because I didn't understand people. I had so many things happen to me that my interaction with people, I became the strong introvert. So I've been all over the state of Colorado, just passing through, picking up odd jobs, working here and working there, surviving, and being able to move around, stay in a place maybe 3 months, maybe 6 months, not long enough for anyone to know me, and then take off. Yeah. And so I was always the guy that go, man, I remember you. And so I'm really good at remembering people. And I go, yeah, there was a time when I was in Vail. I helped build the hotel right here. They were like, yeah, what happened? I was like, I had to go. So that was always my thing. I was always passing through this life. And then I started realizing that passing through this life and going back, I realized at the age of 6, when I first experienced grief, right? Yeah. My neighbors, she lost her twins in a fire. And I was sitting there, and it was just something about it that made sense to me at such a very early age. And then shortly after that, I was molested by my mom's friend's son. And I put a stop to that one. But then from there, a protective side of me came. Yeah, of course. And I had to protect myself. So and I realized that moving forward, after I peeled back the layers, as you said, grief or those episodes of trauma are usually a reaction for something else. And it's getting down to the root of that and understanding what's triggering it. Yeah. So same thing with grief. Grief is just a reaction from something that happened. And so throughout the years, I was going, okay, follow the path. And I realized it was leading me to this moment to do exactly what I'm doing right now, which is providing service to men out there in the world and going, hey, you're not the only one, right? There's a whole community of us over here. Come and see what we talk about. So I was going, you know what? Let's talk about these things. Let's actually care about each other, for each other, but for everyone else around us. Sure. Acts of servitude, right? Yeah. We love that. We serve because we want that positive feedback. We want that feeling of being needed, especially when you've gone through something, right? And most people have experienced that. And it took me a long time. Well, not very long, but it made sense to me. And so now I educate men on physical health, how grief affects your health, your body, and how it needs to move through and everything. And see, I could talk about this all day long. I could definitely talk about this all day long. So, and that's just pretty much what the podcast is about. It's about two people sharing their stories, or, you sharing your stories with people, and I'm just interacting here. I'm just a visitor. So, cool. And we just talk and see where it goes. And it goes as long as we want. So, Well, I do have to stop at 3:10 because I have to leave and pick my kiddos up. Not a problem. So we'll go to then, and then you just, okay. I'm going to do first things first. Got to go through the legalities of it. And so just saying that you understand that this is our video. We can do whatever it is that we want to do, and that you're okay with that. So if you give me a thumbs up, give me an okay. What I'll do is that I don't do a big, huge introduction and things like that, because it kind of throws people off when you get into the conversation. So
Yeah.
I'm just going to have you introduce yourself like you did before.
Okay.
And we'll talk just like we did before. And we'll just take it from there.
Sounds good.
All right. So, starting off, just introduce yourself to people.
Well, hi to all the listeners. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Mandy Harvey. I'm a trauma healing guide, and I have 4 wonderful children. I live in Colorado, and above all of that, I am just a human being on the road of life, trying to heal herself whole.
Nice. Now, see, we're in the same state. We're in Colorado. So how you enjoying this weather out here so far?
Well, it's actually pretty warm today. I was I love this warm weather.
Yeah, I'm going, y'all do realize we're supposed to have snow on Halloween and it's 70 degrees.
I know. The weather here is so crazy.
I mean, with the summer that we've had and everything, and, and with COVID, and how are you holding up with all of that stuff?
Yeah, it was really interesting for me when COVID first started, because I went into do kind of mode. My kids started doing school from home. And so it was a lot of okay, I need to organize routines and schedules for all the kids and make sure my work is getting done and all that. And I went really I swung to the side of just action, and I stopped taking care of me. And so after about 4 months into that, I was really reflecting oh my gosh, I just want to go for a walk by myself, or I just want to go sit outside by I am someone who really gains energy alone. Right. And so all of a sudden my alone time was gone, and it's been a process to learn how to make sure I maintain that throughout this process so that I can really show up fully for everyone else that I need to, and for myself.
Right. Now, tell everybody how you got into doing the work that you're doing. We talked a little bit about it, and I'm just fascinated by it. Just listen to your story and your journey. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, tell everybody how you got into doing trauma work.
Yeah, well, it's all because of my own trauma healing story. I, had a very traumatic childhood growing up. I suffered sexual abuse and neglect for many years. And at the age of 14, my parents committed suicide. And it was because I had told someone at school what was going on. And my stepdad was arrested, and he was a cop also, and would have been put in jail. My mom would have been put in jail because she knew. And so they took their lives. And I, at that moment, really had my entire life stripped away from me. Everything I had known was completely gone. And I all of a sudden was in a new home. All of a sudden I was in a new school. I was, experiencing all these new things, but also experiencing extreme loss and extreme grief and pain and suffering. And I didn't know what to do with that. So because of the circumstances, I was put in therapy, but about 1.5 years into that, I just got so lost in the depths of the grief and the pain that I attempted to take my own life. And it was then when I was hospitalized and put into a mental institution where I was diagnosed with PTSD and put on medication, and slowly began the healing process, all while I was in high school. And I, graduated and started living my life. And in my 20s, I started to have flashbacks to the abuse. And so went through another real intimate round of therapy and medication. And all of a sudden I'm seeing all these things happen to me, but experiencing them through the eyes of an adult rather than as a child, and really started to tap into this anger that I felt towards my mom, towards my stepdad. And for the first time, I was immersed in anger, and I never had experienced that anger before. As I healed through that, I started to have kids and grow our family. And it was in my late 30s when I went through another round of healing and another round of intense therapy. And I've had multiple forms of therapy before, but this last round was a specific type of therapy called Somatic Experiencing. And it really helped get me into the body level of where I was holding all of this trauma still in my body. So I had intellectually talked through it. I had intellectually kind of processed it. My body was still holding on at the cellular level of all this pain and these stories, and the anger was coming up again, and I was lashing out at my kids. And through that process, I really started to gain relief in a way I never had before, freedom in my body like I never had before. And so because of my own experience and journey, I felt like I had something here that I could really hold space for others to be able to do this work. This work is really hard, and it can sometimes feel like you're all alone. So when you have someone in your corner who's able to hold space for you and whatever emotions are coming up, it helps you immensely in that healing process. And so that's how I've gotten here today.
And wow, just listening to it and experiencing so much trauma at a very early age. And as most people that do this work, we often do, I've only met one person that actually woke up and said, you know what, I want to do this, right? And I was like, you actually volunteered for this? And she was like, yeah, but it was something about her passion for it. It's just, it reminds me a lot of what you're saying right there. But, walking through that, and what a lot of people don't understand, healing takes time.
Yes.
It takes going back into some really, really just messed up areas, right? Mm-hmm. And it pretty much destroys you before it rebuilds you.
Yeah.
I learned that through the journey, and then listening to yours, I'm going, okay, I see where you started off at, and going through all of this at that time and being ripped out of home, what was going on through your mind at that time? Like, like being so young and having to go to that. I mean,
I think,
it takes a toll mentally.
Yeah, it does. I think I was in shock for a long period of time. I moved in with my sister, who is 20 years older than me. So it was a home that I was familiar with. But obviously I didn't feel like I belonged, because I wanted to be in my own home with with our mother. But I just was in sheer disbelief. Like, I can remember there were news reporters and news stories about it because he was a police officer, and it was reported on multiple stations. And I can remember watching the news and just being in shock. Like, this is my life. Like, what? Yeah. And I can remember sitting at the funeral for my mom, and just I saw all these people laughing, and I was like, how can people just go on with their life? Like, how can life go on from here? Like, I just was just so confused. Like, this is the end, right? Like, this is the end. Like, I could not even see the future. All I could see was just this through the lens of this intense shock and sheer grief of how could I have just all of a sudden, with the snap of fingers, lost everything that I had known. Right.
And I heard so many people say that, and I've been there in that same spot where, wow, how is it that everybody's still moving?
Yes.
Right? Everything from that moment forward just slowed down.
Yes.
And
it's almost like those movies, where someone is standing there and they're still, but you could see all of the other people moving around them. That's exactly the thing.
It's like you're standing in a fast forward reel, and you see the sun goes down and it comes up, and you're just sitting there going like this, I'm going to put this out there because I've seen it on Twilight, right? And I know most people like Twilight. Oh my God, Tony. But no, there was a scene in there when Bella had lost her boyfriend, or he didn't, he moved away, and she was sitting in the chair, and the days, it reminded me of that,
Yes. Yes, exactly.
It's like, just sitting there. And what people don't understand is that those moments that you're going through, that when everything slows down, it's time that you need to reflect.
Yeah.
That's where the healing starts. Mm-hmm. And I know it sounds easier said than done, right? Because it's the work that comes with it. Neither one of us, I don't think, would be sitting here if something had not clicked in us, and we had to go back and go, man, this took a whole different turn. Like, this makes more sense to me than this, because we talked earlier, and you came from a corporate world, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you got into the work, and that's a huge jump.
Yeah,
that's definitely
it is. Yes.
What's your deciding factor being in the corporate world, and then doing the work that you're doing right now? Because you're working with executives. You're out there just.
Yeah, I think.
Doing it.
Yeah, I think for me, because of the trauma, I went through a lot of healing as a teenager, but that doesn't mean I healed it all. Like we're talking, like it was, many years of layering and kind of healing a lot. So I kind of grew into a woman who still experienced anxiety and stress and kind of overwhelm. My system was still kind of activated because of that trauma. And so I often went into this place of like perfection. So I tried to have like the perfect exterior life, the nice home, the home is cared for, the kids are cared for. And for me, what that meant was, from a job, I need to, have a good job. And I had to fight for getting good jobs because I didn't have a college education. I started working right after high school. And so I always had to like prove myself, like I can do it. I can be just as good as someone who's had this college degree. And so I spent a lot of time in my corporate career kind of stepping up and putting in the hard work and, all these things. But as I started to really get deep into my healing in the last 6 years, the perfectionist part of me started to fall away. I started to realize that my worth is not in what I do. My worth is not in how well I execute my to-do list or how well I execute this project at work. My worth is innately in me. Like, I am worthy regardless of, what project I'm working on or selling or, promoting at my job. And as that started to fall away, I started running my business 3 years ago. And so I was kind of doing them parallel. And it just became more and more present for me as I did my own healing, that this was really my calling. My calling wasn't to be in corporate America. And my time there was really important and valid because it helped me grow my confidence. It helped me grow my speaking abilities. It helped me grow my teaching abilities. But it wasn't where my heart was. And it felt, the longer I stayed there, it felt like my soul was slowly like dying being there. And so I just decided this past year to make that jump, and that I was ready. And this was really the place I needed to be, because I feel like I went through all of that hardship at such a young age to know what it's like and to be able to hold space for others to heal from their own traumas. And so it was like a no-brainer. It was like, this is where I need to be. So I made that jump.
Now, what quarantine last year and everything, what were some of the challenges that you had to go through when dealing with people? Because COVID exposed a lot, and it's still exposing a lot. There's people being touched all across the place right now. And I know, for myself, it keeps us running. It keeps us, I mean, don't get me wrong. It's truly a blessing, right? Because more men are reaching out, and they're realizing that their mental health is not where it needs to be. And they're starting to realize that they're grieving, right? And so more men are becoming more curious. So what were some of the things that you encountered during quarantine? I mean, or was it just, you take everything virtual?
Yeah, I did do everything virtual. Lots of Zoom calls, but I got a wide variety of people coming to see me with a wide range of things going on. I think what COVID did was really, it highlighted a lot of maybe stuff that might have been going on the surface level, but may have really been triggered because of something deeper than that. And so people might come to me saying, I'm feeling so stressed right now. Everything is so uncertain. I don't know how to handle that. But really, as we started to kind of go deeper into it, it was like, oh my gosh, like I didn't feel certain as a child. I didn't have a regular home. This is like really bringing up. And so even though it was like maybe things that could have been related to COVID, often it was a lot deeper than that.
Yeah. It's like what we talked about before, those proverbial layers, right?
Yes.
Things that we create, that we put there as safety devices.
Yes.
And there's the root cause of those layers, because what I found in my own journey, and it's pretty relatable across the board with everyone I've talked to, we realize that our brains are trying to keep us safe. So they're creating different scenarios to keep us from realizing the trauma.
Yeah.
And it was hard going back and forcing my brain because I could see little snippets keep popping up, in my dreams, or, sometimes I'll go to a place in my mind where I'm, if I'm just sitting there and I zone out and I'm having an episode or something, I concentrate on my breathing.
Yeah.
And so I finally had to start telling myself, I went, no more. I need to find out why I am the way I am.
Yeah.
And so then I realized that those invisible layers that I put up didn't exist. And I was going, geez, man.
Yeah.
So now I have to face a harder truth, because not only did my mind fight myself, it lied to me.
Yeah, for
so
sure.
Now, okay, let's go ahead and face the truth. Oh, this really did happen to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now I understand why I react to this the way that I do. Okay, what do I have to do in order to go inside of this? I need to extract this. I need to dissect it. I need to have a relationship with it and learn from it and be able to put it back together with less pieces. That's the whole story of the puzzle. We have a full picture of what this life is supposed to be like.
Yeah.
And when somebody shatters it, then we have to put it back together, and we realize we got a complete picture, but now we have all of this other stuff that don't belong.
Yeah.
And I think that's what that journey is all about. I think we live, and I've said this over and over and over again, and this has held true every time. We all walk that path of our purpose until that purpose it reveals itself. It gives us cookie crumbs, right? And in that moment, I know I've done this before, where I'm mad at the world. I'm going, why are you just picking on me? Right? My whole life has been this way. Why are you picking on me? So I always felt that it was unfair. And then I didn't realize that other people were going through it. Right. Not until I got older. I always thought I was in this world, and somehow, some way, I was a mistake. I wasn't supposed to be here, because there's no reason why human beings should have to go through this much. Right. But then I realized that my story sounds just like a lot of other people.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's something I'd like to add, just touching on that you were talking about, where, we have these patterns that are meant for survival. And I think one of the key points that I know was important in my own healing process, and one that I've seen repeated in my clients, is that in order for us to heal, we have to first acknowledge that those survival patterns were important and they were valid. And whatever way you needed to survive, whether that was putting up a wall and never letting anybody get close to you, or it was some other, running away, or whatever it was, they kept you alive. And that's the important aspect. And so when we can acknowledge that those behaviors actually were important, and we were only doing what we only knew how to do, then we can start to move forward towards shifting those patterns and choosing a new way of living in the world. But I think sometimes, I know for me, when I would get stuck in this, like, why can't I have a close relationship? Why do I always push people away? Or why am I this? Or why am I that? And it wasn't until I really looked deep, and it was like, oh, well, guess what? I never felt like I was chosen as a child. And so I put up a wall so no one else would get close to me. Now I see, and, now I can move forward. But I just wanted to highlight that we have to acknowledge those first and say, that was important. I was surviving. That's only way I knew how. And so now I can expand my toolbox and get out of just surviving and choosing a new way. Once I've been able to acknowledge and see that I wasn't a bad person, I wasn't being stupid or whatever, I was surviving.
It goes back to that old saying, bad things do happen to good people. And we don't choose these things to happen to us. They just do. There's bad people in this world.
Yeah.
And sometimes we are the victims, right?
Yeah.
And it's not like we did anything wrong to anyone. Just and I hate to say it, some people they're just bad people.
Yeah.
And finding strength in that, and finding the courage to actually stand up and move forward and actually address those things. Because if not, we both found out, it does manifest itself later on in life, right? Just like you, I'm 2.5 years in doing this, and I faced every challenge I've had to go through it in order to move forward. But I also realized that going through those challenges helped me in my own healing process.
Yeah.
And the knowledge extracted from there was just beyond anything I've ever really understood, right? I always thought I was going to be an artist, right? Because that's what I loved to do when I was a kid. I'd go and sit in the corner, I would draw out things, but what people didn't understand is that a lot of times I was drawing out things that was going on with me. And people would just see the artwork. And it was like, oh, Tony, that's beautiful and everything. But to me, it was going, this is a memory that I'm going to have for the rest of my life. And so I like with most memories that it only serves a purpose for that moment, you throw it away, right? Or we walk it back. And the brain goes, okay, we're going to file this and let's fill this with Care Bears and My Little Ponies and things like that, And I get that from my sister from when I was a kid, right? Because that was her favorite thing. And being around her made me happy. So those memories, as I realized now when I got older, they helped me. They gave me something to hold on to.
Yeah.
And then I realized there was a collective.
Yeah.
It was a collective, but it was also a guideline. Some of the things that my grandmothers taught me when I was a kid, right? Some of the things that me and my sister used to talk about as we grew up and things like that. My parents, biggest one was my son, taught me so much. And I was going, why do this? What does this mean, right? And I realized, like most people, like yourself, the anger. I realized that it started very early, and I was able to contain it with a calmness until I didn't need to contain it. And then afterwards, it was like, okay, I'm going on about my way. So it was like, why am I this way? And I realized my grief. It was the grief. It was the trauma. It was the thought of being killed, right? The thought of someone else hurting me. It was the thought of, I'm no good. I didn't even know what my self-worth was, right? Here I am, this man in society, pretty healthy, and it was going, okay, well, this has been a part of my life. I'm not going to be around long. So why waste the time of getting to know? So the introvert in me, why get the time of getting to know anyone? I don't need this problem. They're just going to be like everyone else. So now I realize I have trust issues, which, by the way, did not fare too well in relationships.
Yeah, right.
And then I realized that and then I started dabbing into the masculine nature versus the toxic masculinity. Then I realized that I was the toxic one. Mm-hmm. And I was going, okay, we have to do better. First, I have to make better choices, right? And then dealing with trauma, I just went, I'm just a mess. So you ever go through that and just go, I'm just a mess. And I have to sit back and go, what am I going to do with myself, right? So, understanding the self-worth, understanding, finding purpose and my passion and manifesting that through trauma is just, the healing process. The healing process is hard. It's painful. It's very, very painful.
It is, yeah.
And I want a lot of people to understand that like when you're starting to hurt like that, it's the time where you need someone to walk with you and holding space, with someone. Let's dive into that, holding space for someone that's going through trauma. I just did a class not too long ago on that. And everything that you've said kind of resonates with me a lot.
Yeah. For me, I use my tools. I'm a somatic experiencing practitioner, as well as a nutritional therapy practitioner. So I love looking at the lens of trauma through how it manifests as our health into health issues. So oftentimes people will come to me like, they have autoimmune disease or they have chronic health conditions, and they want to gain relief from them, but they're also in this like high activation of stress in their body. And as we start to slowly kind of navigate the experience, we'll start to see that their nervous system is really dysregulated. They're kind of stuck in this either, really high sympathetic nervous system state, or they're stuck in like the opposite, where they just have no motivation, no ability to move, or maybe chronic fatigue, that kind of thing. And so I use somatic experiencing a lot because I love how gentle it is. And I love that it doesn't re-traumatize you when you start talking about your story. So often, when we go through healing, we are kind of reliving our story to some degree, and we're looking at it through a new lens, or we're identifying like, oh, wow, that's what that meant. And sometimes I can feel like it's triggering us again. And so when I hold space for someone, my goal is never to re-traumatize someone, but it's to help kind of be the guardian of their nervous system, to help them gain resilience in their nervous system so they can tap into maybe something that doesn't feel so good, and then come back to something and hold in their body what feels good. And it's this language and this process of being able to interpret your body. Our body talks to us, and we don't experience emotions in our head. We feel them in our bodies. So we might have an upset stomach when we're stressed, or we might feel fire when we're angry, or we might feel like our throat is congested when we're scared. And so all of these signals in our body give us an idea of what needs to be healed and brought up. So when I hold space for someone, we really are tuning into their body, noticing what their nervous system is doing right now and what it needs to feel safe, seen, heard, validated, and healed. And so we'll do that. And it's a very gentle kind of rocking back and forth type of motion where we'll notice what it feels like to feel good in our body. How does that feel versus what does it feel like to feel this anger? What does that feel like? And we might just gently start to go back and forth, slowly getting deeper and deeper and deeper into that trauma or that emotion that's feeling really uncomfortable, with the intention to bring some peace and bring the nervous system back into a state of calm. So we do that in many ways. Everybody's a little different, but really for me, holding space for someone is giving them a container where they can just be completely themselves and feel and get the chance to be seen, get the chance to be heard, the chance to be validated. And I think when we get the chance to be seen and our pain validated, it gives us some relief, because like, oh, finally someone sees this, someone understands why I would be so upset. And then that gives us also permission to start to heal that. So that's kind of what those sessions are all about.
Okay. Now, how can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, so the best place is on social media. So I have an Instagram account. I'm Mandy L. Harvey. And on there, you'll find all sorts of content. I'm pretty consistent each week with content that's all related to unresolved trauma, healing, and support. And I'm on Facebook. I'm Mandy Harvey. And then I'm also on TikTok. I'm Heal with Mandy there.
And do you have a website people can visit as well?
Yes, I do. Actually, thank you. It's mandylharvey.com.
Now, to anybody listening to this right now, what sort of words of encouragement that you would have for them right now?
Yeah. It would be that you're not alone, that what you're experiencing right now is valid, that your emotions are valid, they matter, your experiences matter, you matter, and there is support out there for you in whatever you need. And that it can feel lonely, it can feel scary to take that first step, but, and I've been there, so I know what it's like, but I know that when you do, you will find the support you need in that moment to start to heal and feel protected in whatever way you need to. So I would just want to acknowledge that what we're going through right now, what you may be going through right now, is a lot. There's a lot to add, many layers that we're experiencing, and it all matters. Your feelings matter, your experiences, and you matter. So just know that you have a purpose and a place here, and there are resources that are here for you.
Very nice. Well, Mandy, I want to say thank you for being on the show today. It was an honor to have you on to share your story with everyone in the audience. And, our work is needed now more than ever. And so I want to say, my heart is with you as we go through this journey, as we go through this pandemic, and, in the journey of healing, helping people heal, find that purpose, find who they truly are inside of that. So I want to say thank you for doing that.
Yeah, likewise.
For everyone listening to the show, thank you for tuning in. Please get in contact with Mandy. Her information would be down below. And if you like this, subscribe to the channel. Let us know what you think. And until next time, you guys stay strong, keep your head up, and keep moving forward, because healing takes time and it's painful, but it is possible with the right people. So until next time, you guys enjoy.